Hi everyone, I'm Oliver from Blendtuts.com, and this time I come to you with something quite interesting: abstract geometric and procedural image creation. In this tutorial, we're going to see how to creatively use modifiers to generate automatically cool geometry for us and give us the ability to very easily adjust the resulting image. Basically, we're only going to use a plane as a model, and almost everything you see in these images will be generated by modifiers and a light setup over that plane. Sounds great, huh? Let's go for it. As this is my first tutorial in a long time, I will start by doing something really exceptional, which is not deleting the default cube. I'm going to just reuse it to turn it into a plane, which is what we need for this project. So let's go into edit mode with tab. Okay, and let's switch with Control Tab into the edge select mode, and Control Alt right click to select the ring of edges, Alt M and collapse. And now we are left with a plane, which is exactly what we need for this project. For now, we are going to leave it like this, just to scale it up a little bit, and then we are going to tweak it. But for now, let's leave it like this, because along this tutorial, the cool thing about it is that we are going to do an extensive use of the modifiers. All right, we are going to use modifiers creatively to generate cool things. But the model itself will only be this simple plane. Okay, so you will see the power of modifiers and mixing them appropriately. So let's add a modifier. First, we need a subdivision modifier, but instead of cut mul Clark, we are going to use the simple subdivision. All right, so if we go to wireframe mode, we can see that it's being subdivided, but at the same time, it's not smooth. Right? Because if we use cut mul Clark, it smooths the result. Okay, let's go with simple. All right, let's put this on the render on 4 as well, and just collapse it. Now let's add another modifier, and this one will be a displace modifier. Okay, for now it's only moved everything down, and the reason is that we didn't load a texture here. So let's create a new texture. Let's call it displace, and let's go here to the texture tab. Make sure that here we are in cycles render, which is the render that we are going to use, okay, because these panels may be a little different from Blender render. So you know, just have that in mind. If you want to do this effect with Blender render, these panels may look a little different. But anyway, let's go, and instead of image or movie, let's create clouds. And as you can see, we already start to see some displacement going on in this plane. Let's just decrease the size a little. Okay, there we go. And we can always, right here, copy this subdivision and just turn it down. Okay, just to have a little more. Okay, the next step will be, you know, if we look from the top, we see a lot of squares, but we actually want this to be triangles. So what we can do is to just go here and pick the modifier Triangulate. As you can see, we already have triangles going on here. If we go to wireframe, we see more clearly what the edges look like. And here you have to keep in mind that we have different ways of triangulate the model. The one that we are going to use is shortest diagonal, right, which gives, you know, some variation to it because it takes the shortest diagonal of the polygon and cuts it that way. But if we use fixed form sample, we will have something more geometric. All right, we can do the fixed alternate, which is just turning them in the other side, and this one is an alternative. Okay, for now we are going to go with the shortest diagonal. Okay, this already looks something similar to what we need from the top. Now we are going to add details and create the material. The material, you know, for making some variation between these polygons, okay, we have to make sure this is on flat mode, which I think that automatically if you add the Triangulate modifier, it's already flat by default. But you know, if it's not, you can do it here because we need it to be flat. Okay, next step will be to add a material to this. Let's create a very little window so we can preview the result from the top, and here let's enable rendered. Okay, we have one light here. I'm going to tweak it and convert it into a sun light. Now let's go here and make it almost going sideways, something like this. Let's go from the top and make it almost... Okay, actually we can just reset it like pressing Alt G, Alt R. Okay, and now the light will be reset to its original position. So it's right here, and we can just rotate it like this. And you can see in the view at the top the result that we are getting, which is not exactly what we want. What we want here is to disable cast shadow, and I'm going to explain you now why. The way that we are going to colorize each one of the triangles in the surface is by creating lights that illuminate the surface from a given angle. So having lights coming from different angles without casting shadows, each direction the triangle is looking at will have a different color. And that's why I displaced the surface, but the surface is only displaced in the z-axis, right, in height. And this is because then when we look at it from the top, everything is exactly geometric. But actually, if you look at it from the side, it's very, rough. So, you'll understand it in a moment. So this is here. Let's use here, for example, a red color. Okay, and here let's go to the world and enable use nodes, but the strength will be 0. Okay, we only want to have the effect of these lights. Remember to disable the cast shadow option. Now from the top, let's just duplicate this with Shift D. Okay, and instead of moving it, just right click, R to rotate, and write down 180, enter, and this way we will have another light coming from the opposite direction. And if we put it to blue, you can kind of see already the effect that we are getting. Okay, for now I'm going to use really different colors for the lights so you can see the effect, and then we will tweak them. So now let's press D, select these two lights, press Shift D to duplicate them, right click to cancel the movement, R 180 degrees, this time is only 90 degrees, enter, and we already have lights coming from the other sides. If we add here a green color, and here we can add a magenta color, for example, or yellow color, you can see the effect that we are getting. And the reason why we are getting this many colors is that in some of the faces, 2 or probably 3 of the lights are mixing their colors together. But you can kind of see the effect that we are getting here. Now, what the way that we can change how this affects the surface is by going here and tweaking this, making harder, or going to the modifiers and in the displacement, just increase or decrease the strength. Okay, you can see that if we put it to 0, as the lights come almost horizontally, this surface is not receiving any light at all. So if we increase displacement, you can see how it changes also the effect. For now, let's put it on 1. And now we are going to tweak the lights. Let's put it to use nodes 2. I'm just increasing the strength, okay? The reason why I have to enable the use nodes option is that this light was actually created while Blender was in Blender render mode. So this is a Blender render light. So if we enable use nodes, it's now the cycles lamp. Okay, let's now tweak the colors a little. I want this to be kind of, probably reds and yellows, right? Something to make something a little warm. Orange. Okay, this is not bad. I like it. So let's go to the next step, which is add a wireframe. Let's go to the modifiers, and on top of the triangle, let's go and add a modifier, wireframe, and this is what we are having. This is not exactly what we need, but we are going to tweak it. Now, pressing Shift and left-click drag here, we can very precisely turn the thickness down, okay, because we need it to be very, very thin. Something probably like that, or even less, okay? And now we want to have, to see the actual surface, so we can go here, and instead of replace original, we disable it. And so we have the wireframe on top of the model. Also, we can put the material offset, and I'm going to explain you what this is. Let's go to the materials and actually create a new material, and this material will affect this surface. This is the basic material, which is exactly what we had. What I'm going to do is to tweak it, and instead of a diffuse, I want a glossy shader. You can see that it's completely black because it's now reflecting the background. But if we turn on the roughness, you can see how this reflects the light a lot better. All right, the specularity turns very rough, and the lights work in a very different way. If we turn that to 1, it's almost the effect of a diffuse color. But if we turn it to something like 0.5, we get a pretty nice result. Okay, now we need to create the material. This will be the plain material. But now we need to create the wireframe material. Let's go here, add a new slot, create a new material, and call it wireframe material. This one will be a little tricky. I'm going to explain it to you. If we put it to emission, here it is, and white color, because I want it to be completely white. Now it's not working, as you can see, but if we go to the modifiers, I can go here to the material offset and put a 1 on it. And what this means is that here the material offset is that this is the original material, so it's going to slide down on the list 1 position and take this material for the wireframe. Okay, so this is what material offset means. Now, as you can see, we are having here white wireframe material. Now, the thing that is happening here is that this emission material is emitting light on top of the plane, and we don't want that. We want this to be completely white, but don't affect the rest of the material. So what I'm going to do is to go to the node editor. Let's go to the material, which is this one, and I'm going to do a proper shadeless material. Shadeless means that it just has a 100% emission rate. Okay, so we don't see shadows or lights affecting the surface, but at the same time it doesn't affect the rest of the materials, all right, because here it is emitting light and lighting the rest of the scene, and we don't want that. So what we are going to do is to create here a shader transparent. There we go. Put it here. Add a mix shader. Put it right here. And let's plug the emission at the top and transparent at the bottom. I know this is counterintuitive because I say at the top with the bottom input. All right, this means that in Blender the things that are more to the bottom are actually on top of the previous one. All right, it's like this is the first, this is the second, this is the third, which means that the third is on top of the second one. All right, I don't know if that's clear, but the more to the bottom of the list, right? Same happens with modifiers and with layers here in the mix nodes. The ones that are at the bottom have an effect at the ones over the ones that are on the top, right? So I hope that's clear. Now what I want to do, right, this is a mix between an emission shader and a transparent shader. What I want to do is to actually go and add an input, light path, and put it here. And what I'm going to do is to create a link between its camera ray and the factor of the mix shader. This means that if the light, if the ray that is casted from the material towards other surfaces, Blender will compute it as a transparent material. But if that ray comes to the camera, it will appear like an emission material, right? It's like this node, the light path node, is like a conditional node. Okay, so this way we can create a condition for the mix shader to when it has to display one material or the other. So for the rest of the scene right now, this wireframe material is a transparent material, but for the camera, it is an emission material, which is why we see it in white here from the camera, but it's not lighting the rest of the scene anymore. Okay, so this is how you can create a proper shadeless material. Now let's see how this looks like. Here, what we have now is just the plane with these triangles and everything, and what we can do with this is to select these 4 lights and change the colors of all the grid. Okay, so if we want to have something more cooler, we can just add like some, cool tones to the lights until we like it, and until we achieve something interesting, right? I kind of like this combination. Okay, now let's see how we can point the camera towards this and have the right effect. We are going to reset the position of the camera because it's right here, and if we look at it, this is what we would see, okay, and we don't want to see that. We are going to press Alt-G, Alt-R, and now the camera is pointed towards the ground, so we can move it up, and here you can see we have the right view of the plane. Now what happens is that we are seeing it with perspective, right? And here at the borders, we are seeing the displacement. And if that's what you're looking for, that's cool. But in this case, we want it to be completely geometric. We don't want to see that this is a plane, a displaced plane. We want it to look like a 2D image. So what I'm going to do is to go here to the camera and click on Autographic. So this way, the camera will be completely orthographic and see everything without perspective. So now we can just increase or decrease the zoom scale so we look at it as we like it. Something like this. Okay. Now we have to create the little dots. Okay, and for that there are a lot of ways of doing it. I'm going to create a new scene, and I'm going to explain you why in a moment. So let's go here, create a new scene. This will be dots. Go back to scene. This will be the plane. Okay, and here from the plane, I'm going to select the plane itself, press Ctrl L, send objects to scene and dots. That's right. Also, I'm going to set the camera, so Ctrl L and set it to dots. We don't need the lights, we only need the plane and the camera. So this is what we have here. As you can see, we have everything black in the rendered view because we don't have lights in this scene. So we have this plane and we have the camera. We need to add the dots, and for adding the dots, I'm going to create an instance of this object. So let's press Alt-D, Alt plus D, okay, to be clear. And what this does is to create an instance of this plane, and if I tweak the original one, the new one will be tweaked as well. Let's move it to the second layer with M, second layer, there we go. So now I can go to the second layer and I have this plane here. Now for this plane, I'm going to disable the wireframe. And you could also disable the triangulate, but never mind, we don't need that. The reason why I did this is that if I link the object and create the dupliverts, that I'm going to use that technique to create the dots, this wireframe modifier creates a lot of geometry here to generate this wireframe mesh, okay? So this means that when I add the dots to the vertices of this mesh, this wireframe would have a lot of dots going on here. You're going to see it very clearly in a moment. So what I'm going to do here is to create a, actually let's go to a different layer so you can see it more clearly. Let's create a circle, and probably 10 are enough. And the fill type, let's go with an hang-on. I want it to be filled. All right. Now, this object, let's press M, and with Shift, let's enable it on the two layers, okay? So we can have it with this one together, and we can have it separated in this one if we want to come in and tweak it very easily. All right, so from here, what I'm gonna do is to select the circle, Shift, right click, and select the plane, press Ctrl P, object. This will make the circle to be a child of the plane. So if we move the plane, the circle goes with it. And the reason for that is that now I'm going to go to the Object tab here, go down, and here on Duplication, let's click on Birds. And you can see a lot of weird stuff going on here. What this does is that the plane generates a copy of its children, or in this case the circle, on each one of its vertices of the mesh, okay? So now we can just go here, scale it down, and you can see what we have. We have a little dot on each vertex, which is exactly what I want. Now let's select the circle and go and add to it a new material. And this is Blender Render. Let's go to Cycles Render, use nodes, diffuse, emission, and there we have this one. Let's go here to the second layer, and this is the result we have. So as you can see, we have a grid of circles created on each one of the vertices of the mesh. Here you can see exactly the result. The thing why I duplicated the plane is that when you use the dupliverts option, right, this is how you call this option here. This is the dupliverts, dupliframes, duplifaces, etc. Right, so when you use the dupliverts, the plane itself, the original mesh that you're using to duplicate the objects on each vertex disappears on render. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. And if we do it on the original one, it would actually affect the other one because they are linked. So what we want to do is to just duplicate this, all right, with an instance. So in case we go to this plane and modify it, all right, or subdivide it or whatever, this other one gets affected as well. And at the same time, we only have the dots separated from the original mesh. A downside of this is that we are working with a lot of modifiers, and modifiers are not shared between instances, okay? But anyway, we're going to copy them and show you how to do it very quickly. For now, what I'm gonna do is to just leave this enabled, all right, the second layer. We have the camera. We can actually put the camera on the second layer as well. It's not needed, but this way we can see everything here. Press 0. This is what we see. And we can go to the plane scene. There we have it. Now, we need to make a compositing here. So let's go here. Node editor. Compositing nodes here on this button. Enable use nodes option. Enable the backdrop. We don't see it yet because it's not rendered, but we can shift, control, and left click on this one, and this will automatically create a viewer node, okay, which is this one, and we have a composite node. Okay. Now what I need to do is to duplicate these render layers, put it down, and this one is going to render the dots scene. So Basically, what we have here is a render layers node that will render this scene here, and another one that will render the dots scene. And then we are going to mix them. So for now, I'm going to just set up the render. For now, let's keep it at 50%. Keep in mind that we have two different scenes right now. So if we want to tweak it to 100 to change the resolution, the size of the image, we have to tweak them separately. So just keep that in mind. Let's go down, maybe increase the sampling. Render, let's put it something like 50. Well, for this one, let's something more, all right? We don't want noise to be going on. And in the dots, the scene, let's increase the render as well to something like 50, because this is something very simple. So let's go to the plane scene, let's save it, and launch a render with F12. Now wait for it, and I will come back when the render is ready. Alright, I didn't wait for the render to finish because as you are seeing here, I've got a mesh going on. A mess, not a mesh. Well, a mesh as well. Here you can see a lot of wireframes going on, and this is not exactly what I wanted. So press ESC, and what is happening here is that we have to select the plane. Let's go to the modifiers and check what's going on with this subdivision. As you can see here, the second subdivision subsurface modifier has 4 divisions in render, which is increasing a lot resolution. What is happening is, if you see here what's going on, if I increase the view, this is what's going on, all right, until 4 times. So I really want this to go on 1. Okay, if you want to get exactly what you get on the view, you better keep an eye on this. Now, this is very cool to use the subdivision, all right? I could just go to the plane and subdivide it manually, all right? But the cool thing about subdivisions here in the modifier is that we can procedurally, increase or decrease the amount of divisions on the plane, which is pretty interesting. And now, yes, let's press F12 and let's make sure it's working. Yeah, now it's working as expected. Alright, the render is done. You can see it's looking pretty nice. This is the full size. Okay, it's only 50%. And for the last one, for the final render, we may want to increase the samples because we are getting some noise here. The reason of this noise is mainly because we have used a glossy shader, which takes a little longer to render. Okay, but the result is better than the diffuse. So I like it more, and I prefer to wait a little more for the render. Okay, let's press ESC. And here we have the 2 renders done. We have the dots and we have the render layer of the plane. If we just press Control Shift left click, here we can see the dots scene. I'm actually going to just press Shift Space to make this full screen so we can see what's going on. Now, how to mix these 2 layers? Very, very simple. This will be a very simple compositing lesson. So let's press Shift A. Let's go into Color, Mix. Let's add it here. Control Shift left click here so we can see what's going on. Right now, what's happening is that this we have this color on the top, and the factor is on 1, which means that we are only seeing this color. If we reduce it, we can see how it gets mixed with the original. But what we want to do is to plug in the second render layer, the dots, into this, and instead of mix, I'm going to put it on add mode, which takes the white color and put it on 1. So now the white color of the dots is getting completely overlapped over the original image, and the black parts of the image gets completely transparent. This is what the add mode does. Okay, so we have these 2 images mixed together, which is pretty cool. Now we're going to add a little more of a little more compositing to make it a little more interesting. We're going to add a vignette, and we're going to defocus and the dots and the the parts of the image in the outer edges of in the borders of the image. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, so let's press Shift A. Let's do a mix. Put it here. I'm going to actually just, instead of just unplugging it like this and dropping it here, I'm going to show you a different way of cutting connection, which is press Control, left click and drag. You can see a cutter on the cursor, and if we release it, we cut those connections. So we have this, and we are going to mix this with itself, which may, well, instead of this, we have to use this one, which may look kind of counterintuitive, but what you're going to see now is that in one of the images, I'm going to just add some things in the middle. So let's go here and probably add filter blur. Okay, so now the second image will have a blur. Let's put it on 20. Okay, this is way too much. 3. Okay, this is just a little. It's very cool. And we're going to also press Shift A, color, mix, put it here. And what I'm going to do is to put this on black color and turn the factor very low, something like 0.2, maybe 0.3. Okay, you cannot mix, multiply, doesn't really matter. Okay, we're only mixing this layer with the black color to make it look a little darker. And now I'm going to create the vignette effect. So let's press Shift A, matte, ellipse mask, put it something like here, and just plug it here into the factor of this mix node. And here you can see that we have this ellipse mask that let us see what's going into this thing. We can just select it, so we can see this little white rectangle, which is kind of tricky to see because we have the wireframe going on in the image, but we can see it. And if we increase the width and height, you can see how it affects the background. So we have something like this. Of course, this is not what we want. We want this blurred image to be on the outer side. So what I do here is to just click on Shift A, color, invert, and plug it here. So this mask is inverted. So you can see it. Press Control Shift left click. This is what the mask look like, and this is what the inverted version looks like. All right. So basically, it lets us see the white part of the image. It lets us see this this image here, the blurred one, and in the black areas, we see only this one. Pretty interesting. Another alternative. All right, let's mute this node with M, so it has an effect. It doesn't affect the image. All right, so now the mask is not inverted. An alternative to invert this color would be to invert the order of these two guys. So as you can see, a lot of ways to achieve the same effect. And now here, let's press Shift A, filter, add a blur, put it here, and do something like 200 or so. Okay, so we have towards the borders this little effect, so you can see how we can tweak this a lot. Right, so if we increase the black color, you can see how it changes. Let's enable bokeh here. Bokeh, the bokeh option in the blur filter kind of gives a lot of more quality to the blur. Okay, in this case, I think it's just not really important. Okay, so we mostly have it. We can finally add probably a little color correction. So let's press Shift A, and I like a lot the RGB curves. So we can just increase the brightness, reduce this here. So this kind of a nest-like curve, as you can see here, gives a lot more contrast. So you can play with it until you like it, and probably, you know, increase the blue channels or decrease them. Same with the red channels. Okay, I kind of like this one. So just make sure that it is plugged, the RGB curves are plugged onto the composite node, because this is what will define what is rendered at the end. So now when we press F12, this will be the result that we will get. Now, tutorial is finished actually, but I'm going to actually show you something very cool, which is, as we have created this using modifiers, we have a big ability now to just go here, add new modifiers or tweak these ones to get different results. So for example, I'm going to use something that I like a lot, because with the result that we got here is very geometric, is very horizontal, and very straight lines, and I want something more organic. So what I can do is to go to add modifier and add a decimate modifier. This is very interesting, and I'm going to move it up before the triangulate. Okay, the reason why I added before the triangulate is because I want triangles to be shown. Okay, I can disable them so you can see what's going on. All right, the triangulating is happening anyway because this is has a lot of displacement, and Blender internally is actually triangulating already. But with the triangulate thing, we actually create edges there that can be used for the wireframe modifier later. You can disable this if you want. Okay, so let's go to the decimate. We can just click here in this ratio and reduce it. And you can see we start seeing something very interesting. Let me just go here so you can see it. What is happening here is that Blender is collapsing vertices that are close together depending on the ratio that we pick, so it can kind of keep the original shape while reducing vertex count. So if we keep decimating like a lot, you can see that we can get really interesting results. You can see without it and with it. If we disable the displacement, it kind of do something similar, but not exactly the same, because the displacement actually creates some variation in the mesh that lets the decimate modifier to work in a more interesting way. We can just go here and increase or decrease the amount of subdivisions, giving us a lot of liberty of what I want to do. And another cool thing here, all right, let's say we have that, and now I'm going to show you the other thing here. As you can see, this is not working. Okay, the dots are not in their position. The reason is that this mesh, and let me just increase this like this. The reason is that this mesh is actually not taking into account the modifier, the decimate modifier that we just added to the original one. So if we go here, we can see that this mesh is linked to the original one, and it actually has the decimate modifier, but the new one doesn't. So we just enable the two layers, and we have to go to wireframe and make sure that we select the the duplicated modifier, the duplicated mesh, the one that has the dots on it, and shift right click. Wow, this is gonna be tricky. Shift right click on the one that has the decimate modifier. And in the add-ons, if we press Ctrl Alt U, here we go. You have the copy attributes menu. Okay, I just have it enabled always. It's one of the modifiers, one of the add-ons that I use a lot, because if we press Ctrl C, it allows us to copy properties from the active mesh into the other ones, like the modifiers. Okay, copy selected modifiers, for example. Let us just add the decimate modifier, press OK, and now the new mesh has the decimate modifier as well. And the cool thing is that it also adds it in the right position. All right, for this mesh, the wireframe modifier and such were deleted, so it's adding it at the at the bottom of the list. But if we had more modifiers going on after the decimate, it would be pasted into the right position. So as you can see now, the dots are on the right position. Okay, and if we go to the plane scene, we can just press render, do it right here, press F12, and wait for it to see how it looks like. Okay, as you can see, it looks pretty interesting. And this could be the never-ending tutorial, right? Because I always want to keep adding things, but I just want to give you the techniques that you can use. So here, press ESC. Okay, let's go into the 3D view, and let's actually tweak this circle. So press Tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to tweak this circle, all right? And it's going to, those changes will extrapolate to all the vertices of the mesh. So I just want to, press Control Tab to go into vertex mode. Deselect everything with A. Select this, press, I don't know, Shift D, okay? Scale it up. Face, I want to delete this face, press X, but only faces. If we select faces only, it will also delete the vertices. If we select only faces, the vertices and edges will keep being there, which is exactly what I want. Press E to extrude, right click to cancel, and scale to just scale this up a little bit. Go to object mode. You can see that this is not exactly a circle. It has a very polygonal shape, but the thing is that as this is these are very small, the render is not going to actually see that. So you can see how it looks like now. It's actually kind of big, I think. So I can just go to the original one and tweak it a little. Make it smaller, and now let's let this and make it bigger, so we have a bigger space here, empty space, and the shape is more recognizable here. All right, something like that could be enough. We can scale it down even more. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, possibilities are endless, and using modifiers and duplicates and things, we can achieve procedural results, which gives it, very quickly we can change the overall look of the scene and create an interesting image, which is an abstract geometric image. Other things that we could do here is go to the plane, okay, and this would be to, for example, use a, I don't know, let's go to the, where are you? Wave, okay. Took a long time to find that. Okay, so we have this, and you can see that if we go on, let's put this on solid mode, you can see the effect of the wave modifier, okay? It does a wave here. You can see that here on the rendered mode, the cool thing is that as we have these displays and the lights are coming from different directions, coloring the faces, if we go to a different frame, okay, let's keep an eye on this viewport here. If we change to another frame, the colors change on the surface. Okay, as this only changes mostly the C direction, okay, and we can kind of tweak it. We actually see this, these lines, the wireframe lines, are all in the same position always, but the colors can change depending on where the face is looking at in that specific frame. So here you can see, if you focus on this face here, okay, this face now is orange. Wow, in render mode we cannot draw with grease pencil, okay, but keep an eye to this face. It's orange now, but if we keep dragging, well, it's not very visible, but you can see how it changes its color. Okay, so you can play with that. And yeah, you could, shrink wrap this plane to another object and move the object behind it. to define how these colors change, and then render an animation, you know, like with the colors changing, or you can even change the geometry, or change, you know, you can animate the decimate modifier to, you know, be changing how the grid looks like. You can do a lot of things with this. So yeah, this is it, you know, point 3. I really hope you like it. You know, you have to keep in mind this modifier, if you change it, you have to go back to the other, and you know, this is the bad thing of having different modifiers in different objects. Okay, you have to keep an eye on all of them at once. Probably someday we will have the ability to link modifiers, so you know, they are kind of instanced, because duplivers are kind of tricky, because you actually need a different mesh, because otherwise the mesh disappears on render, and we don't want this, because this is you know, the main thing of the image, which is the plane and the wireframe. So yeah, that's it. I hope you liked this tutorial. It was a long time in silence, I know, a really long time. The reason was I was working on my Blender book. You probably didn't see it yet, but you will very soon, because I'm working on a video to promote it, and it was released a few weeks ago. It's all about creating characters using Blender. So you know, if you visit my latest post on my website, you can see some information about it. And as I said, soon, very soon, in a few days, hopefully, I will publish a video showing it to you, so you can see it for yourself, if you like it or not, or whatever. So I really hope you enjoyed this first tutorial after a long time. More will be coming soon, and see you on the next tutorial. Happy blending!